Herman Melville's Moby-Dick has become a hallmark of American culture. The novel has seemingly woven itself into staples of everyday American life.
Dad, you can't take revenge on an animal. That's the whole point of Moby-Dick.
Lisa, the point of Moby-Dick is be yourself.
Take, for example, Starbucks. What we see as just an ordinary coffee shop is actually a reference to the novel itself, as it is named after a character named Starbuck, who is the Pequod's first mate and foil to Captain Ahab. While this epic story of a whale has influenced American culture, it has also influenced American writing, as the book set precedent for what we now know as American modernism. Although close to when Melville wrote Moby-Dick, American modernism was not set in motion until the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This period is characterized by its untraditional ways of viewing and interacting with the world, as it was influenced by two world wars and the rise of modern industry and technology. As a result of the changing world around them, modernist writers struggled to understand the world and cope with the collapse of institutions like religion. This resulted in them feeling a loss of faith and hope in the structures of American society. These lost values led to a loss of identity, and thus came the term, the Lost Generation, coined by Gertrude Stein. The modernists are called the Lost Generation as they struggled to find the meaning and stability in a world filled with confusion, change, and worry. This sense of disillusionment is seen through modernist writings as they played with form, structure, style, and theme to reflect the essence of the modern world. While these characteristics make up what we know as modernism, Herman Melville had already explored these ideas in his grand novel Moby-Dick, as he broke away from the traditional form of a novel, creating a collage-like text blending forms, perspectives, and style. The novel starts in an untraditional way by including the etymology of the word whale and a set of extracts that list quotes from texts that mention whales. Herman Melville includes these parts not just to make readers struggle in reading the book, but to cause them to question ideas of knowing and ponder whether we can truly know anything truthfully and wholly. This idea of questioning knowledge and truth later becomes a staple in modernist writings as writers question whether there is such a thing as absolute truth, as they gave up on the idea that anything was truly knowable. Instead, to the modernists, knowledge was relative, unstable, and fluid. This can be seen especially in modernist writer Gertrude Stein's piece, where she redefines words and objects in her own lens. For example, to Stein, a red hat is not just a red hat, but rather a dark gray, a very dark gray. A quite dark gray is monstrous ordinarily. It is so monstrous because there is no red in it. If red is in everything, it is not necessary. It is not that an argument for any use of it, and even so, is there any place that is better? Is there any place that has so much stretched out? In this sense, knowledge has no stability, as to Stein, a red hat is not just a red hat. Meaning changes as each person navigates their own world. Like Stein, the narrator of Moby-Dick redefines the world in his own lens. For example, in the chapter titled Cetology, Ishmael redefines species of whales in his own terms, calling a whale a fish due to his own experiences. This ultimately reflects the modernist idea of no absolute truth, as there is no stability to knowledge. In keeping with the idea of form, Herman Melville experiments with the traditional form of the novel by blending structures of a play, a folio, and science books, all while taking on perspectives of unique characters like Stubbs, Ahab, and Starbucks. Herman Melville's experimental form is later adopted by writers like Jean Toomer and Gertrude Stein. In Cain, Toomer blends prose, poetry, and visuals, all while taking on various perspectives of people to comment on American life post-slavery. The fragmentation of the novel is used to mirror the fragmentation of people's lives trying to navigate in a post-slavery America. In the same way, Stein, in her novel, 3 Lives, takes on 3 voices of women to show their unique experiences of living in America, just as Melville embodies various characters' voices in different chapters of Moby-Dick. In this same way, Melville helped reform the structure of a novel as he mixed mediums and tapped into several voices. In Moby-Dick, Herman Melville also reforms notions of a narrator in a novel. Usually, modernists are given credit for the invention of an unreliable narrator as they write in a stream of conscious style. However, Melville, through his character of Ishmael, provides an unreliable narrator who exposes the voyage of going out to sea through his own eyes. In modernist works, unreliable narrators were used to expose the irrationality at the roots of a rational world. In other words, unreliable narrators were used to reflect the instability of the world while also giving insight into human consciousness. In this same way, Melville uses Ishmael as an unreliable narrator who distrusts institutions like religion and who goes through an existential journey while encountering the world. Moreover, Ishmael is the eyes through which we learn about Ahab and others, just as in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, Nick is the narrator through which readers learn about Gatsby. In this way, Melville innovated a narrative technique that later becomes a staple in modernist writings. A last and final thought. Ishmael, as a character, is a very modernist one. His feelings of sadness and wanting to go out to sea is similar to those of expatriates like Hemingway who wanted to leave America in hopes of finding something new. This could especially be seen in Hemingway's novel The Sun Also Rises, where the narrator Jake and his friends travel to Spain in hopes of finding themselves or something. One of the most notable lines in the novel is one that Jake says to his friend, "You can't get away from yourself by moving one place to another, just as Ishmael can't escape himself by going out to sea." Ultimately, Ishmael's loss of faith in religion, his melancholy sadness, and his need to redefine the world in his own lens makes him a figure that modernists later found as inspiration for their own stories and characters. While it is unclear whether modernist writers like Hemingway, Toomer, Stein, and others read Moby-Dick as a source of inspiration, it is true that the novel broke through traditions of writing that later make up American modernism. While it's unclear whether modernist writers like Hemingway, Toomer, Stein, and others read Moby-Dick as a source of inspiration, it is true that the novel broke through traditions of writing that later make up American modernism. In this way, Moby-Dick is a novel ahead of its time as it innovated form, style, theme, and writing.